Hey guys, I hope this video finds you guys doing well. Today we're going to be in John chapter 2. We're in part 2 of our Discovering the Real Jesus series. And we're going to be talking about desperate times call for desperate measures. If you're just joining us, make sure you go back and look at part 1. It kind of gives a little bit of context to what we're going to be talking about today. And it's kind of very valuable context that I want you guys to really kind of get. And so if you're watching this, go ahead and finish watching this one and make sure that you go back and watch the other one. That way you get a good amount of context of what's going on. But we're continuing on in this series. And today I want you guys to think about something. I want you guys to think about any kind of time that you have gone to a wedding. What was that like? I know I've gone to several weddings. I've gone to some great weddings, sometimes some over the top. One of my cousin's weddings was just over the top and fancy, and a lot of people, big old Catholic wedding, just all kinds of stuff going on there, and just awesome time. I've been to some, just regular, just good weddings, and I've been to some weddings where there's definitely been some tension there. And so you never know what that one aunt or uncle might say that could cause a little bit of problems. And so what I'm trying to get at is this. We all have been to weddings. Now here's the thing. Jewish weddings are a little bit different, especially from back in ancient times. In ancient times, Jewish weddings could last up to an entire week, an entire 7 days. That's a long stinking time to have a wedding. All right, that is one long time to have a wedding. And here is what I want you guys to understand. All right, they partied like you wouldn't believe. All right, they did the wedding, the wedding first. All right, the wedding ceremony first, and it was literally a feast day in and day out for an entire week. All right, and they knew how to throw a party, especially the more wealthy the family was, the better the wedding was. All right, and Jesus, the context of what's going on is Jesus and his mother and his disciples have been invited to a wedding in Cana. And this is the first of Jesus' miracles. We see in verse 11, this is kind of the context of which this is all set up. It says this: Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee. He revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. All right? He revealed his glory. In John chapter 1, verse 14, it says that the glory of God came and dwelt, or he tabernacled with us. All right? That he came and dwelt among us. And so he's revealing his glory, that the glory of God is among the people. And this is the first of his miraculous signs that we're going to see, that is going to show the people of Israel that yes, Jesus really is the Messiah. And so what I want to do is share 3 truths with you. We're just going to kind of quickly go through these, not to spend too much time on this, just kind of grazing through it real quick. But here's the first truth is this. It's found verses 1 through 5. Go to Jesus in times of desperation. Let's look at what happened in verses 1 through 5. It says this: on the 3rd day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding as well. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, "They don't have any wine." "What does that have to do with me, with you and me, woman?" Jesus asked. "My hour has not yet come. Do whatever he tells you," his mother told the servants. All right, so go to Jesus in times of desperation. I want you to see a couple things that are going on. One, life can leave us in times of desperation. We see that in verses 1 through 3. All right. If you look at what happened in verse 3, they ran out of wine. Now, this is, back in those days, an honor culture. An honor culture. And in an honor culture, if you ran out of wine at a wedding, that was dishonor on your family, and your family could be shunned from their city for the rest of their lives. All right. And so that's dishonor on the family. And so all of a sudden, there's presented a situation to Mary that all of a sudden they're running out of wine. They have run out of wine. And that's a bad thing. And so my suspicion is Mary is either really, really close to the family, or she's possibly even the wedding coordinator, because she's in on this. And this is something that wouldn't be revealed to just anybody, all right? Because the family would be ashamed to even admit that they're running out of wine and that they didn't purchase enough wine. And look at what Mary does. She goes to Jesus with a very presumptuous request. And she's basically saying, in the way that mothers tend to say without actually asking, all right? She's like, hey, they've run out of wine. All right? And what she's asking is, hey, can you do something about this, Jesus? And so that's exactly what she is doing. And look at Jesus' reaction. All right? He's kind of a little bit slightly stern with her in this reaction. And he basically tells her, well, what does that have to do with you or me? And he's basically saying, I don't know what that has to do with me or with you. And he says, my hour has not yet come. In other words, his purpose is not to save the honor of this family. That's not what his purpose here on earth is. His purpose is to save the souls of this family. And he's saying, hey, my hour has not yet come. My hour to die and to save the entire world has not yet come. And so he's basically saying, hey, I don't really know what you're asking me to do because my hour has not yet come. And look at what she does next. And this is kind of our sub point coming out of verse 5. Desperate times call for desperate faith. So look at what she tells the servants in verse 5. It says, do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. And instead of fretting, she goes and says, okay, that's your response. Hey, go do, she turns to these people and like, hey, go do what he tells you to do. She already knows he's about to do something. All right? She already knows that he's about to do something. Here's what we have to understand from this. All right? Jesus provides our needs when we have faith in him to provide. And so that's exactly what Mary is doing. She is having faith that Jesus is going to do something to provide. She does not have a clue what that's going to be. And a lot of times when we go to Jesus in prayer, we have to understand that we don't exactly know how he's going to fulfill that. But he is going to fulfill it. He is going to fulfill it. We have to have faith. I am not one, don't take me wrong, I am not a prosperity gospel person. Not in the least. Trust me, if you need a new car, all right, if you need a new car, all right, God's going to provide you the means to get a new car. Now, here's the thing. You can't be, if you're, if you're in need of a car, you can't be thinking, oh, God's going to provide a BMW for me. No, God's going to provide a car for you. But he's not going to provide all this lavishness just because that's what you want. That's out of selfish motivation of what you're thinking about. All right? All you need is a car to get you from point A to point B. And that's exactly what God is going to provide. Now, I can tell you from past experience, all right, I have been in times where I have been in need and God has always provided. Whether it be monetarily or something happening, all right, God has always provided and it always happened at the right time. All right, why? Because I've gone to him in faith. I've gone to him in faith and he's always provided exactly what I needed. It wasn't necessarily what I was thinking about or what I was asking, but it was what I needed. And it took me a little while later on to figure out, oh, wait a minute. He provided something different, and that's actually what I needed. What I was asking for wasn't actually what I needed. See, he gives you, if you go to him in faith, he gives you what you actually need, and he provides what you actually need. And so we need to make sure that we are going to him in faith. So not only do we learn to go to Jesus in times of desperation, we also see in verses 6 through 8, God's instructions can sometimes be hard to understand and follow. So look at verses 6 through 8. It says this, now 6 stone jars, water jars, had been set there for Jewish purification. Each contained 20 or 30 gallons. Fill the jars with water, Jesus told them. So they filled them to the brim. Then he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the head waiter. And they did it. So here's the thing. Under this one, I want you guys to see a couple things. Though difficult, the Lord has purpose in all of his instructions. In all of his instructions. Look at what Jesus said. What Jesus used. he took these water jars that were empty because they had been used for the purification. They'd been used to wash people's feet and all this kind of stuff that is water that they used for that. And these things were empty. They were holding 20 to 30, they could hold 20 to 30 gallons of water each. And he tells them, hey, go fill this up with water. He tells the servants to go do that. Now here's the thing. Think about this. They can't take the jars. They're taking buckets and all that kind of stuff, and they don't have faucets like we have with running water. We can just run a hose to it, fill them up. All right? They're actually going out in this time frame and going and getting buckets full of water, going back to the well and doing all kinds of stuff. They're just dumping this water to go back and forth, back and forth. That would have been some hard work and work that they didn't understand. But what did they do? They did it. They actually did it. All right? And they obeyed his actual command. This would have been hard work for them to do. You're talking about 120 to 130 gallons of water. That's a lot. That's a lot. Now here's the thing. They didn't know what Jesus was doing. They're probably thinking this guy's crazy. But they did it anyway. And let's look at his second request. All right? His second request. His second request is go draw a second cup. Go draw a cup. Go take it to the head waiter. Now he knew what he was doing, but they're like, Jesus, what is this? What is this? And so they in obedience, they took it and they took it to the head waiter. All right, we're about to see exactly what that means. But here's the thing that I want you to understand is this. This is kind of the point. All right, obedience opens the door for God to work in your life. If you feel that God is telling you, hey, you need to go do this, and you do it, you go out in obedience and you do it, even though it's hard and it's difficult to do, it opens the door for God to work in your life. And I promise you, if you step out in obedience and do it, God is going to work in your life. But you got to step out in obedience. All right, you got to step out in faith and step out in obedience. Because God is waiting on us to step out in faith and obedience in order for him to do something in our lives. A lot of times we're sitting there waiting and twiddling our thumbs for God to work, and God is saying, hey, you need to go do something. And anytime you look in the Bible, God says you need to have faith. There was an action to that faith. And there was always obedience. And even though the commands that he gave were sometimes hard and they didn't understand, look at Genesis chapter 22 with Abraham and Isaac. Abraham didn't understand exactly what was going on, but God did. And Abraham still obeyed. His faith was shown through his obedience, and it opened the door for God to do something radical in his life. So the last thing I want you guys to see, so not only go to Jesus in times of desperation, God's instructions can sometimes be hard to understand and follow. But third is God's life-transforming power. Look at verses 9 and 10. It says, when the head waiter tasted the water after it had become wine, he did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. He called the groom and told him, everyone sets out the fine wine first. Then after people are drunk, the inferior. But you have kept the fine wine until now. All right. Let's look at two truths underneath this. All right. Only God can radically transform a life. Only he could have radically transformed that water into wine. And not only does he transform it to water into wine, but he transformed it into better wine than that was the original wine that they had served at the beginning. Now here's the thing. Only God has the power to take the old self of us, radically transform it into not only a new creation, but something way better than what it ever was before. And so only God has the power to do that. And here's another truth I want you to see. When he does change a life, he does it in a way to show his majestic glory. His majestic glory. All right? It's all about showing his glory off. Showing how he is the only one who can save. He is the only one who can radically transform your life. He is the only one that can free you from your sins. That is what the point of this miracle is showing. Is he has the power to do what only God can do, which is transform what was one thing into a completely different thing that's way better than anyone could have imagined it could be. And so that is exactly what Jesus does. And only he has the power to transform your life. Now, if you've never trusted in Christ, here's the thing I want you to understand. All right? The gospel is very simple. We are sinners. And there is nothing that we can do to stop ourselves from sinning. We are born into sin, and we mess up, and we rebel against God all the time. But God sent his Son at the perfect time to live the perfect life that we couldn't live, because perfection is the standard. God's perfection is up here, and we're way down here. And so there's nothing that we can do to get to that level of perfection. But he sent his Son to live the perfect life that we couldn't live, and to die the death on the cross that we deserve to die. The most torturous death ever conceived of by the human mind. Then not only did he die on the cross, but just as we celebrated this past week, we celebrated Easter, which I usually like to call Resurrection Day. We celebrate that Jesus rose again on the third day to conquer the one thing that we all face, which is death itself. And he has the power over life and over death. And if you trust in him and believe in him, not just a head knowledge, but a heart knowledge, that means that you surrender all of yourself to him. Say, Jesus, come into my life. Come into my life and save me. I promise you, he will come in and radically transform your life and free you from the bondage of sin. And only he has the power to do that. But you have to step out in faith and do that. You have to go out and initiate it. He's already taken the initiative. But you got to run to him. You got to go to him. It's not some magic prayer that you say, but it's a heart cry to Jesus. And I hope that if you've never trusted in Jesus, that you will pray to him today and cry out to him, Jesus, I need you. I desperately need you. And I want you to come into my life and free me from my sin. I promise you that is a prayer he's going to answer right away. He's going to come into your life and give you a hope and a peace and a life that is abundant. Not a life abundant of riches, although he could do that, but a life of hope, a life of peace, a life of joy that even in the midst of desperate situations, he can give you calm in the storm. And that's what he can do in your life. I hope that this has been encouraging to you. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell. That way you get notified whenever we do put out a video. And make sure you share this with everybody that you encounter. Make sure you share it on social media, all that kind of stuff. Why? Not for me to get famous, but for the gospel to go out into the entire world. Because that is what I would love to see to come out of this. I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.